His mouth tastes like copper, blood and sweat mixed with something else. Something animal. The cut above his eye is leaking warm streams down his cheek, pooling in the corner of his mouth where his mouthguard meets flesh. He can feel his heartbeat in the wound, throbbing, angry. The ringside doctor is leaning in close, too close, shining a penlight into the gash, asking if he can see clearly, asking if he can continue. Mike doesn't answer, just stares past him, through him, at nothing and everything. His cornermen are talking, their voices sound underwater, distant, muffled instructions about keeping his hands up, about staying composed, about sticking to the game plan. But there is no game plan anymore. There's only the taste of blood, and the sound of 16,000 people screaming, and the memory of Evander Holyfield's skull driving into his eye socket 2 minutes ago, not once, twice, 2 deliberate headbutts in 2 rounds, and the referee did nothing, saw everything, did nothing. MGM Grand Garden Arena, Las Vegas, Nevada, June 28, 1997. Saturday night. The rematch everyone said Tyson didn't deserve. 7 months ago, Holyfield stopped him in the 11th round. Stopped him. Mike Tyson, the man who dismantled champions in 91 seconds. The man who made grown fighters quit before the first bell rang. That man got stopped, got dominated, got exposed. And now, 7 months later, he's back in the same ring, against the same opponent, trying to prove that night was a fluke, trying to reclaim something he's not sure exists anymore. The arena is electric, sold out, every seat filled with people who paid obscene amounts of money to watch 2 men try to destroy each other. The celebrities are ringside, movie stars, musicians, athletes from other sports. The high rollers are in the luxury boxes, everyone dressed in their finest. Women in evening gowns, men in expensive suits, all of them leaning forward, all of them hungry for violence, for drama, for something they can talk about on Monday morning. The lighting is theatrical, spotlights cutting through manufactured smoke. The ring canvas is bright white under the lights, already stained with blood. Tyson's blood, from the headbutt in the first round that opened the cut, from the second headbutt that made it worse. Mike sits on his stool in the corner. His corner, the place where Cus D'Amato used to stand during his early fights, where Cus would look at him between rounds with those knowing eyes and tell him exactly what he needed to hear. But Cus has been dead for 11 years. 11 years of fighting without his voice, without his discipline, without his structure. Teddy Atlas is long gone. Kevin Rooney is long gone. The men who built him, who shaped him, who understood the monster they were training and knew how to keep him controlled, all gone. Now it's different people, good people, maybe, but they don't understand. They don't know what's happening inside his head right now. His trainer is wiping his face with a towel, cold water shocking his skin. The cut man is working on the gash above his eye, trying to stem the bleeding, pressing cold metal against the split flesh, applying coagulant that stings and burns. Mike barely feels it. His body is present, but his mind is somewhere else, somewhere dark. A place he hasn't been in a long time, a place Cuts taught him to avoid. The place where the scared kid from Brownsville lives, the kid who got beat up every day, the kid who learned to hurt people before they hurt him, the kid who discovered that violence was the only language that protected him. Potts used to tell him that anger is a weapon, but rage is a weakness, that discipline separates champions from animals, that any fighter can throw wild punches, but only a master can control the storm inside him and channel it with precision. Potts built Mike's entire psychology around control, around focus, around being the best boxer in the room, not the scariest, but Cox is dead, has been dead, and Mike has been trying to be both ever since. Across the ring, Evander Holyfield sits on his stool, calm, composed, breathing steady. His corner is working on him, but he doesn't need much. He's winning, clearly winning. Outboxing Tyson, making him look slow, old, finished. Holyfield is 34 years old, but he looks fresh, sharp. His game plan is working perfectly. Get inside Tyson's head, disrupt his rhythm, use his head as a weapon. Not flagrantly, just enough, just strategic. The kind of veteran tactic referees often ignore because it's not obvious enough to call but effective enough to throw an opponent off his game, and it's working. Tyson is frustrated, breathing hard, cut and bleeding. His punches are missing. His timing is off. His legendary power is landing on arms and gloves instead of flesh and bone. The referee is Mills Lane. Legendary, no nonsense. Supposed to be the best in the business. But Mike watched him ignore the first headbutt, watched him ignore the second one, watched him look directly at Evander's skull crashing into his eye and do nothing. No warning, no point deduction, nothing. And in that moment something fundamental shifted in Mike's understanding of this fight. This isn't about boxing anymore. This isn't about skill or technique or game plans. This is about survival, about what happens when the rules don't protect you, about what you become when you realize the referee isn't going to stop your opponent from deliberately trying to injure you. The 10-second warning sounds. Round 3 is about to start. His cornermen step out of the ring. The stool is pulled away. Mike stands. His legs feel heavy. His head is pounding. The cut above his eye is still leaking. He can feel blood running into his eyelid, making him blink constantly, distorting his vision. The ringside physician is watching him closely. One more bad cut, and they'll stop it. They'll stop him. Again, in front of everyone. In front of the world. Another loss. Another humiliation. Another confirmation that Mike Tyson is finished. He walks to the center of the ring. Holyfield is already there. Meeting him, the referee brings them together for final instructions. Stay clean. Protect yourself at all times. Touch gloves. Mills Lane steps back. The bell rings. Round 3. They circle. Holyfield's movement is confident, smooth. He's not afraid. That's the problem. Every opponent Mike ever destroyed was afraid. Fear makes fighters defensive, makes them hesitate, makes them mentally quit before their body does. But Holyfield isn't afraid, never has been. He's smaller than Tyson, older than Tyson, but he believes he's better than Tyson, and for the last 2 rounds, he's been proving it. They exchange jabs. Holyfield's lands clean. Mike's misses. Frustration builds. They clinch. And this is where it happens. In the clinch, where the referee can't see everything, where veteran fighters do the things that don't show up on highlight reels. Evander leans in. His head presses against Mike's face. Not a headbutt. Not technically. Just pressure. Just positioning. But Mike feels it. Feels the deliberate aggression. Feels Evander trying to reopen the cut. Trying to make it worse. Trying to get the referee to stop the fight. Something in Mike's chest tightens. Not his muscles. Something deeper. The thing Cus spent years teaching him to contain. The thing that made him dangerous as a kid on the streets, but would destroy him as a professional fighter. Rage. Pure, undisciplined, animal rage. The kind that doesn't think, doesn't calculate, just reacts, just hurts, just survives. Mills Lane separates them. They reset, circle again, and Mike can hear it now, can hear Cus's voice. But it's not the usual instructions, not the technical advice about cutting off the ring or working the body. It's something else. Something Cus said to him when he was 14 years old, after Mike got jumped by 5 guys in Brownsville and fought his way out. Cus found him afterward, hands bloody, face swollen, shaking with adrenaline, and instead of praising him for surviving, Cus said something Mike never forgot. When they stop fighting fair, you have 2 choices. Become the victim they want you to be, or become something they can't control. Mike blinks. Blood from the cut runs into his eye. Burns. He wipes it with his glove, leaves a red streak across the white leather. They clinch again. Holyfield's head drives forward. This time there's no question. It's deliberate. His skull crashes into Mike's face. The same spot. The cut opens wider. Pain shoots through Mike's skull. White hot, blinding. And the referee does nothing. Sees it, does nothing. Everything goes quiet. The crowd is still screaming. 16,000 people on their feet. Noise like an engine. But Mike doesn't hear it anymore. Doesn't hear his corner yelling instructions. Doesn't hear the commentators analyzing his declining performance. Doesn't hear anything except his own breathing, and the voice in his head that isn't Cus anymore. It's the kid from Brownsville. The kid who survived. The kid who learned that when the world doesn't protect you, you protect yourself, by any means necessary. They separate, circle, come together again. And this time when they clinch, when Evander leans in with his head, when his face is close, when his guard is down, Mike doesn't think, doesn't hesitate, doesn't calculate consequences. He just acts, opens his mouth, clamps down, hard, on Evander Holyfield's right ear, bites through the cartilage, feels it separate. tastes blood, not his own, someone else's, the most primal violence, the most forbidden act in boxing, the thing no professional fighter has ever done in a championship fight. Evander screams, jumps back, his hand goes to his ear. When he pulls it away, there's blood. Lots of blood, streaming down the side of his head, down his neck, soaking into his trunks. He's looking at his hand, at the blood, not understanding, not comprehending what just happened. His face twists in pain and confusion. He spins toward the referee, pointing at Mike, pointing at his ear, trying to show what happened, trying to show the wound. The arena explodes, not with excitement, with shock, with disbelief. People are standing, pointing, screaming, some laughing nervously, some silent with their hands over their mouths. Celebrities at ringside are out of their seats. Camera flashes are going off like lightning. The broadcast commentators are yelling over each other. Did you see that? He bit him. Mike Tyson just bit Evander Holyfield's ear. This is unbelievable. This is insane. This is the end of Mike Tyson's career. Mills Lane is running over, grabbing Mike, pushing him to a neutral corner. His face is red, furious. What did you do? What the hell did you do? Mike doesn't answer, just stands there, breathing, blood on his mouthguard. Someone else's blood. The thing Cus warned him about for years just happened. The monster he built his entire career trying to control just came out, in front of the world, on pay-per-view, in a championship fight. Everything is over. The ringside physician is in the ring now, examining Evander's ear. There's a piece missing, not a scratch, not a cut. A piece, gone, bitten off, somewhere on the canvas. The doctor is trying to stop the bleeding. Evander is pacing, still in shock. His corner is yelling at the referee, disqualify him. End this. He bit him. He bit his ear off. This is over. But Mills Lane doesn't stop it, doesn't disqualify Mike. Not yet. Instead, he walks back to Mike's corner, issues a warning, a stern warning, 2 points deducted. If it happens again, the fight is over. Mike nods, doesn't speak, just nods. The referee waves them back together. The fight continues. Evander can't believe it. Can't believe they're continuing. His ear is mangled. Blood is still flowing, but the doctor cleared him, said he can continue, so he has to. Has to go back out there against a man who just bit through his flesh. Against a man who clearly isn't fighting by any rules anymore. Against a man who has become something else. Something dangerous. They touch gloves. The formality is absurd. They just touched gloves 90 seconds ago when this round started. Now one man's ear is torn, and everything has changed. But they touch gloves, because that's the protocol. That's what boxers do, even when nothing makes sense anymore. They circle 30 seconds of cautious movement. Evander is protecting his ear now, unconsciously turning his head. Mike sees it, sees the fear. Finally, the fear he needed to see 2 rounds ago. The fear that changes everything. They clinch, and Mike does it again. Opens his mouth, baits. The left ear this time, clamps down, hard. Evander screams again, pushes away. His hands go to both ears now, blood flowing from both sides of his head. He's backing up, not fighting, just backing away. His face is twisted in pain and rage and disbelief. He throws his mouthguard out, gestures at the referee. He bit me again. He bit me again. Are you seeing this? Are you doing anything? Mills Lane immediately calls it, fight over, disqualification. Mike Tyson disqualified for biting. The first heavyweight championship fight in history ended by disqualification for biting. The most infamous moment in boxing history. The moment that changes everything. But Mike doesn't care about that yet. Doesn't care about the disqualification or the lost purse or the suspension or the lawsuits or the criminal charges or the end of his legacy. All he knows in this moment is that for 90 seconds he wasn't Mike Tyson the boxer, wasn't Iron Mike the champion, wasn't the disciplined fighter Cus D'Amato built. He was the kid from Brownsville who survived by doing what needed to be done, who learned that sometimes the rules don't protect you, and when that happens, you protect yourself. The arena is chaos. Security is flooding the ring. Evander's corner is charging across, trying to get to Mike. Police are forming barriers. Mike's team is surrounding him, pushing him toward the ropes, toward the exit. People are throwing drinks, throwing programs, screaming obscenities. This is a riot. This is the end of boxing, as a respectable sport. This is the moment when prize fighting becomes a circus. Mike is escorted out, through the crowd, objects flying at his head, spit landing on his back, rage directed at him from every direction. He keeps his head down, doesn't react, doesn't respond, just walks, bleeding, disqualified, destroyed. But for just a moment, for 90 seconds in that third round, he wasn't the victim of Holyfield's headbutts, wasn't the fighter losing control of his legacy, was something else, something the rules couldn't contain. Days later, the fallout is catastrophic. Nevada State Athletic Commission revokes his license, fines him $3 million, 10% of his purse, the maximum allowed. Criminal charges are filed, civil lawsuits, endorsement deals evaporate. The few sponsors who stuck with him through prison, through controversy, through everything, they're gone now. You can survive a lot in American culture. Scandals, crimes, failures. But what you can't survive is becoming a joke, becoming the punchline, becoming the cautionary tale. And that's what Mike Tyson became in 90 seconds. But here's what nobody understood then, what took years to understand. Mike Tyson didn't snap in round 3 because he was losing, didn't bite Evander Holyfield because he was desperate or frustrated or angry. He did it because for the first time in his professional career, he felt what he felt on the streets as a kid, unprotected, vulnerable, abandoned by the people who were supposed to keep him safe. The referees saw the headbutts, did nothing. The commission licensed the fight, did nothing. The system that was supposed to regulate fairness, that was supposed to protect fighters, it failed. And when that happened, Mike Tyson stopped being a boxer and became a survivor again. Did what survivors do, whatever it takes. Cus D'Amato spent years building a psychological framework to contain Mike's rage, channeling it into disciplined violence, controlled aggression. But that framework required trust. Trust that the rules would be enforced fairly. Trust that the referee would protect both fighters equally. Trust that the system works. And in those 90 seconds, that trust shattered. The kid from Brownsville realized the ring wasn't different from the streets. When you're alone, when nobody protects you, you protect yourself, by any means necessary. Years later, Mike would talk about that night with something close to understanding. Not pride, not justification, just understanding. He'd say that Holyfield's headbutts weren't accidents, they were strategy, veteran tactics, things referees often ignore, and he'd say that his response wasn't boxing, it was survival. He'd say that Cus taught him to be a boxer, but Brooklyn taught him to be a survivor. And when those two things came into conflict, when he had to choose between losing with dignity or surviving without it, he chose survival, because that's what he learned first. Before Cus, before discipline, before everything, you survive, whatever it takes. The night ended with Mike Tyson's legacy in ruins. His license revoked, his reputation destroyed, his career effectively over. But it started 90 seconds earlier, in a clinch, when he felt Holyfield's head drive into his cut for the 4th time, and realized nobody was going to stop it. Nobody was going to protect him. And something inside him, something Cus D'Amato worked for years to control, something from before Cus, something from Brownsville, from survival, from the streets, came out. And for 90 seconds Mike Tyson wasn't a boxer, he was something boxing couldn't contain. That's what 90 seconds did. Not end a fight, not disqualify a champion. Changed what we understand about what happens when discipline meets desperation, when control meets chaos, when the rules fail and survival takes over. Evander Holyfield won that night, won the fight, kept his belt. But Mike Tyson reminded everyone of something boxing tries hard to forget, that underneath the rules and the referee and the regulations, underneath everything civilized about the sport, these are still two men trying to hurt each other. And sometimes, when the structure breaks down, when the rules don't hold, you see what's really there. Not athletes, not champions, just humans protecting themselves the only way they know how.